I know it's a very heavy topic to be talking about on a rooftop with like soft wind blowing and lights and everything, but I just feel it's very important. We do ourselves a disservice to only talk about the positive and the Emunah Bitachon without allowing ourselves to be comforting and real and make space for something else first. And then we could talk about the Emunah Bitachon. So what is it that we need to make space for? What was it that I missed? So the first thing is understanding what pain is. I didn't realize this. Right? There was once a victim of a stroke, and his doctor came in and gave him a shot, and he screams in pain. He's like, "Ow!" And the doctor starts smiling, and he's like, "Why are you smiling?" He says, "This is the first time you've had any sensation in your hand in the past few months." Pain is a mechanism that Hashem gives us that's actually there to let us know something is wrong. And when we don't feel pain, when we're numb, it's actually worse. So the first thing for me to understand was that pain had its place. It was good. It was healthy. I never want to desensitize myself to mine or someone else's pain. I was skipping that. Someone who's diabetic can lose feeling and the ability to feel pain, like in their toes and fingers, and that's why, unfortunately, sometimes a diabetic could get an infection and not feel it and then have to lose a limb. Pain, I wouldn't call it a gift yet, but it's important to recognize it has its place. People that don't feel pain, they don't feel emotional pain, they could be psychopaths, they could hurt other people. It doesn't hurt them. So the first thing that I had to recognize was that pain is something that has its place, and we're not going to try to explain it away. It's like the story of this teacher who used to teach his students, the same way you thank Hashem for the good, that's how you're supposed to thank Hashem for the bad. And this was something he said all the time. And one time there was a tragedy, and his wife and kids, unfortunately, were on a ship that sunk, and they didn't make it. And the students were like looking for a way to tell their teacher about this terrible tragedy. They came over to him and they said, you know, one student was like, "Rebbe, like, you know how you always teach us that you have to thank Hashem for the bad, the same way you thank Hashem for the good?" And he's like, yeah. And he's like, "Do you mean that you really need to like dance the same way you would dance at a child's wedding? That's how you should dance if you hear that a child didn't make it?" The teacher's like, "Yeah." The student looks at him with so much compassion and says, "So start dancing." And the teacher fainted. The greatest minds, the greatest philosophies, the greatest speeches about how it's all good and Emunah and Bitachon, we can't forget our humanity and leave space for it. And for me, that was very comforting. And for me, that was very healing to learn. I don't need to run away from the emotion. I don't need to numb it. I feel it. And really, when it comes to this approach of Emunah and Bitachon, there's going to be a lot of paradoxes, and that's what I want to go through tonight. Emunah and Bitachon is really a paradox. For example, for some people, when they go through a challenging time, it bothers them so much. Like somebody after the Holocaust wrote to the Rebbe, "How could such a just God do something like this?" And the Rebbe's response is, "The fact that it bothers you mean that you believe in Hashem." So on the one hand, this, you know, it could bring out our faith in Hashem, but at the same time, for some people, it causes them to question Hashem. There's all sorts of paradoxes here. And as Yidden and as mature people, we learn how to hold on to both. We learn how to hold on to exact opposite approaches. So, we're not going to try to explain pain. We don't understand pain. But how do we respond to pain? How do I respond? And by the way, pain could be small level. I lost, recently someone frauded my account, $2,000, and I'm fighting with Bank of America and I can't get it back. So it's not like a tragedy, but it's pain. It's money I worked for. And sometimes there's things that are, a loved one is in a hospital. There's all different levels of frustration. Things happen. And when I allow myself to feel that human emotion, then I can move past it. So how do I respond to pain? I want to share 3 short examples, stories, to give us an idea of what the response to pain is. And if at any point, by the way, anyone wants to ask something or share something as well, I feel like this rooftop lends itself more to for bring in, sit down talk than just me speaking at you. So please feel free to contribute if at any point you'd like to. First story. When the Mishkan was complete. And the Jews were celebrating, and the Yidden were celebrating that the Mishkan was finally established. Nadav and Avihu, go ahead. They have ratzoi without shuv, l'chaim. L'chaim. Thank you. Water? Nadav and Avihu, they bring up a carbon, and unfortunately they pass away. And what's Aaron's response? Vayidam Aaron. Aaron is quiet. Moshe Rabbeinu, he's having a conversation with Hashem. And he sees in the future Rabbi Akiva learning Torah. And he asks Hashem, this great teacher like Rabbi Akiva, what's his reward? And Hashem shows him something horrific. Hashem shows him Rabbi Akiva's meat being weighed in the market. And Moshe was upset. Moshe says, Zu Torah v'zu schara? This is Torah and this is his reward? And this is a feeling a lot of us can relate to. Someone who does so much kindness and good, and this is what they get. And what's Hashem's response? Shtaik, kach ala b'machshava. Quiet. This is what arose in my thought. You're not going to understand it. And it would be cruel to try to explain it. Silence is the appropriate response. When someone is in pain, and that includes ourselves, it's not the time yet to start getting philosophical. Silence. We never want to become people who can understand exactly why somebody's going through something. Because then we will stop feeling compassion. We will stop feeling that thumping heart that wants to do something for that person that's in pain. Silence is appropriate. And the third example, Rabbi Shmuel Kayan Gadol, right, from Asar Ruge Malchus. Terrible story. The Roman emperor's daughter wanted him, and so they skinned his face, and he's screaming, and even the Malachim couldn't handle it. And Hashem says, if this screaming continues, the entire world will turn into chaos. And Rabbi Shmuel was silent. So what does this mean? This means when you start pontificating and using words to address a bleeding heart, you will cause chaos. Not appropriate. And I know that we've been dealing it in high school, in school, in the community lately, and that's why I shifted a little bit what I was going to talk about, because I realized, I remember once a few years ago when I was in high school and something happened to somebody, and we wanted to bring in Yossi Jacobson, or Simon Jacobson, I think it was Yossi Jacobson to come speak, Rabbi Jacobson. And he said, not appropriate yet. Not the right time yet. Not the time yet to start talking. It's time to be there for somebody. Empathetically. Hug. I remember when a loved one was in the hospital, and it was a very, very scary time. A friend showed up in the hospital with food and gave me a hug. That's it. And it wasn't the right time for me to hear any of that stuff. So step one, silence. Here comes the paradox. The same Yiddishkeit that says it's not appropriate to start philosophizing, not yet, quiet, silence, you will never understand it, don't even try to explain it because it's above your understanding, has an exact opposite approach. When Hashem tells Avram that he's going to destroy Sodom, Avram doesn't just accept it. Sure, Hashem, I don't understand why you're going to do it, but just go ahead and destroy Sodom. He's like, Hashem, no! Can you try to save them? Maybe there's 50 people you could find, and maybe there's 40. He's busy negotiating with them. Accepting Hashem's plan and being silent is not a contradiction to begging Hashem and saying, no, Hashem, could you please give them children? Could you please give us a house? Could you please get her a shidduch? Not just that. What was Moshe Rabbeinu's response when the Yidden were suffering in Mitzrayim? He said, Lama hariyasa lama zeh. Hashem, why are you causing pain? Why are you doing something bad to the Yidden? This is Moshe Rabbeinu. This is not me and you. This is a tzaddik, a nasi. At the same time, it's not a contradiction to our faith to question Hashem. Say, Hashem, we're not trying to find the reason. We're not understanding. Why? What are you doing? Again, I'm going back to that, my first experience then after high school, after that bubble where I was like, oh, I need to be able to feel the pain. And it's okay and healthy to be able to talk to Hashem, to cry out. This is what men of faith did. In fact, when somebody after the Holocaust wrote to the Frierdiker Rebbe that he knew the Holocaust happened because this and this reason, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Hashem doesn't need an advocate. Don't go try explaining it. Cry out in pain to Hashem. Once we go through these aspects, we go through the experiencing of pain or the empathizing with someone else's pain, and we question and we challenge. Part of the process is Emunah Bitachon. It happens to be, it will help us heal when we tune in to our Emunah Bitachon in Hashem. Going back to myself, eventually, after I understood that it's okay to feel pain, and it's almost like a cycle, then suddenly I was able to look at things differently. I remember my doctor, when the whole thing happened, he said to me, he's like, don't take it so much to heart. He's like, imagine like a tree, an almond tree, and like some almonds just come out bad. It's like, don't worry, like this pregnancy didn't work out, but like don't take it so seriously. And I remember looking at him like, are you actually out of your mind? I would rather think this is not random. He's like, it's fluke, it's lightning. He was trying to make me feel better, not to worry about the future. But I was like, no. Random? I don't go to him today, but I'm not going to tell you his name. I was like, no, I don't want to think it was random. It was much more healing to think this is exactly what Hashem planned. When we feel the pain and we don't fight it and deny it, then, yes, we could actually feel better and comforted. And there were a number of things that actually helped me feel comforted. I remember hearing a story of the Baal Shem Tov, a couple that didn't have children for many years, and they went to the Baal Shem Tov for a bracha. They had a child finally, and then the child passed away at 3 years old. They went to the Baal Shem Tov, devastated. What happened? And the Baal Shem Tov explained to them, this is a neshama of a tzaddik, high-level neshama, that for the first few years of his life, he wasn't born through Taras Mishpacha, didn't have kosher food, and you were chosen to carry and raise this child. You know, and most parents have 20 plus years of raising their children. And it's hard work, and it's sweat, and it's tears, and it's money, and it's frustration, and it's bedtimes, and it's getting out of bedtime, and it's a lot of work, and you were able to do it, right? And I remember reading a letter, I can't remember from who wrote to his daughter, who also had a stillborn. A similar idea. This neshama might have been a neshama of a tzaddik that just had to be conceived through Taras Mishpacha. And I was able to let that in. That was very comforting. I don't know why I had to have this, and why I had to experience this pain, but it was comforting. I was able to move past the pain and be comforted and healed. And that's where Emunah in Hashem, in Neshama, right? The Rebbe was a big believer in Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, in his philosophy of man's search for meaning. And what did he say? How did he survive the concentration camps? That you can endure any how or what if you have a why. When you have purpose and when you have meaning, then yes, you could handle difficult challenges. So we have the ability to find meaning, to find growth, to find purpose once we move past the first stage of pain. About a year ago, I was feeling very worried about something. So I was speaking to a friend of mine, an author friend of mine, Miriam Yerushalmi. She's also a psychologist, and I was talking something through with her. She asked me, she's like, by the way, Sarla, do you daven? So I remember telling her, I was like, okay, could you stop distracting me with like silly questions? Like, I asked you a question, could you first answer? She's like, no, I want you to answer me this. She's like, I'm telling you, if you start davening again, you're not going to be so worried about it. And I was very like a little weirded out almost. And I love her. I was like, what? I hung up the conversation very, very uncomfortable. The next morning, I'm on a WhatsApp group of Emunah Bitachon. I get letters every day. And the Rebbe is writing to a woman. And the Rebbe says, you want peace of mind? Daven. Because when you think about Hashem and you connect with Hashem, that will be the peace of mind. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something to it. And I really did try working on davening more. Davening was hard for me. It was hard to focus. I started learning about davening. But once we're able to move past and sit with the pain and the question, find that healing connecting to this letter, the Rebbe that I found at Chabad.org very much. There was an artist, Mendel Fitzgerald's brother, Hendel Lieberman. And he wrote into the Rebbe once that he was feeling depressed. He had correspondence. Is he family with someone here? Are you not? No? Okay. And he wrote, he was, I guess that an artist with emotions, was very down. And the Rebbe responded to him, you're an artist. When you look at a beautiful painting is not just flat. What makes a painting more beautiful is when there's darks, and there's lights, and there's highlight, and there's shadows. A shadow brings out how beautiful the light is. And the Rebbe said, a shadow in your life can highlight and make it appreciate all the highlights that are there. When we have a shadow, when we have something that's pulling us down, aside from Hamalega, it can make us appreciate the good. It can make us prioritize. Because if we're having a hard time with something, suddenly we stop to think, hey, wait, what is the most important thing? And sometimes it does take a shake up, start appreciating the time with our family. Whether it's with our friends, spouses, family by choice, our children, whatever it is. Sometimes we get re-inspired. So challenges are there for our growth. And we have that ability to work through it. And like the Rebbe always says, to learn Emunah Bitachon, strengthening these muscles really do help us. And we find meaning in things. One person that inspires me to no end, and when I think of this idea of growth from a challenge and channeling the pain into something unbelievable, is Rabbi Bachner from Boneola. Every time I think about him, I'm full of awe. Here was a man who got married and didn't have children, and I heard him speaking recently, started an organization where thousands of babies were born. That's growth. That's a silver lining. That's feeling pain, not running away from it, and doing something with it. Growing from it. And that's what we have an ability to do. Because when we're down in the dumps and we do something with it, and when we reach out to someone else, we help someone else, we do grow. And we do use our experiences. And we wish we didn't have to go through it. And this is why it's important to remember everything. We don't start telling ourselves, oh, this is why it has to happen so that I can help other people. No. We don't understand why it happened. It shouldn't happen. It's painful. After the fact, what could I do? What could be the silver lining? How could the shadow enhance my painting? We don't want it. We want Taiva, Nirva, and Nigla. But how could it make me a stronger Yid? How could it make me a stronger Yid? Rabbi Lau, the chief rabbi of Israel, the original one, came to the Rebbe once in the earlier years and he said, Yiddishkeit was a little bit of a mess. Post-Holocaust and so much going on. He said to the Rebbe, he said, was wird sein? What's going to be? And what did the Rebbe tell him? Just checking the time. The Rebbe said to him, don't ask, was wird sein? What's going to be? Say, was wird mein Plan? What are we going to do? Instead of throwing our hands up in despair, how difficult the situation is, it's like, okay, so what can I do about it? How can I channel that energy? How could I hold on tight? There's another important thing. Sharing. Talking. It's also was a learning curve for me to realize that a changed man cannot free himself. We can't take ourselves out of the rut, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. So if we're learning those letters of Emunah Bitachon and we feel that gap between where we are and where we want to be, it's because I might need someone's help. I might need someone to reflect that back to me. I might need to be honest with my friends. I might need to reach out to a mashpia. I always try to throw it in when I'm talking to the high school girls, like maybe in this way, maybe in that way, because I can't I can't overestimate it because it's so, so crucial and important. We need friends. And this is all part of the Torah approach to developing our ability to cope through life just life, just normal frustrations. Just, I mean, you know, for some of us, even not finding a parking or a parking ticket could get frustrating. But if we want to strengthen our emotional abilities to internalize everything Hashem does is good, I have the bitachon that everything will be better. The ability to handle the two opposites, accepting Hashem completely, but questioning Him and channeling it. And we have the ability to do all that. And it's comforting. It's like taking a weight that we're carrying, putting it down. I don't have to carry the entire thing. I'll wrap up with this story. I just shared it recently, but it's actually a story that I grew up with, and it really helps me. My father used to tell it to me. My father has a certain number of stories to the point that we joke about it. We say number 16 and we know what that joke is, you know, that story is. So this is number 12. That there was once a wealthy man in a carriage traveling along the road, and he sees behind him this old, poor man with a very, very, very heavy package on his shoulder, and he feels really bad. He says, "You want to come into my wagon?" He's like, "Oh, you serious?" He climbs into the wagon with his package, and they keep riding. And as the horses are clunking their way in the road, the rich man turns around and sees something really strange. He sees that this man is sitting in his wagon, but he still has his package on his shoulder. He says, "Okay, you could take the package and just put it on the bench." He's like, "I feel so bad that you're like giving me a ride. I don't want you to have to also give my bag a ride." And it's silly. The bag is already getting a ride. You're not helping by carrying it. We think that by being heavily weighed by things that are pulling us down, we're like doing Hashem a favor. Like, let me also carry this bag. Like, Hashem, you have so much on your mind, let me carry this. Actually, Hashem is carrying it anyway. You may as well put it down. What?
He should put it down.
He should take it away from us. Absolutely, he should take it away from us. But the weight I'm referring to is the weight of the ice and the anxiety and the worry and the stress. You know, the relief that people feel or see. If you're ever at the aisle, sometimes you see someone going in and they come out. There's like that breath, that deep breath. Like, I just gave it all over to the Rebbe. I just wrote that pun. I wrote into the Rebbe and I asked the Rebbe to take care of it. It's on the Rebbe's shoulder. It's Gimel Tammuz. The Rebbe is there for that reason. The Rebbe is there to give us that Emunah Bitachon. The Rebbe is there to reveal our ability, our essence, to just want one thing, Hashem. And at the same time, we can come to the Rebbe with our pain, with our questions, and with an openness for growth, for channeling whatever we're going through, learning something from it, learning to appreciate it, recognizing our neshama, and that there's a mission, and that it's not some junky little almond on a tree. Oops, next time you try again, and hopefully it's more successful. And I just want to bench all of us that we should really all have taiv hanerav and nigla. We should be sensitive to other people. We should never feel desensitized by any news. We should have the ability to channel, to do things, to comfort other people. And really, we all demand from Hashem to just bring an end to a time where nobody's going to cry. We're going to do what we were meant to do, and we won't have to hear Hashem say silence. We're just going to be living a time of Mashiach where we're going to be connecting to Him and doing what we really want to do. So thank you so much for having me, and good luck. I hope you all win everything you want. And